we've heard many times in the last year or so from the Prime Minister, from Hannah Herman, from Lovuchkin, from many other people in the government of Ukraine, that they do not approve of the policies of the Minister of Education, that they don't expect him to stay in his position for a long time. And even a few days ago we heard this again. But if you will pardon my, maybe cynicism at this point, I am questioning whether such statements are a bit of disinformation to keep us running around and hoping and keep us confused. There is a policy in the government of Ukraine right now to centralize authority. There is definitely a level of corruption which has become epidemic. There is a lack of transparency in all levels of governance, and including in education, that needs to be dealt with. And the fact that the same people control the executive, the legislative, and the judicial branches of government is a very, very serious problem. Now, everything is not lost. In January, when Mr. Tabachnik proposed the draft law on higher education, which was really outrageous, aimed at complete control of university autonomy and academic freedom, everyone said, well, it's lost. They're going to close Kiev Mohyla Academy. What are you going to do? We've lost everything with this government. That's not the way it is. We should not give up. At that time, we got together. We talked about a strategy on how to defeat this draft law, and it was defeated. And I must say that the leader of the pack of that defeat was Lesya Orobets. She was able to convince many members of parliament, including members of the Regions Party, that such a draft law would be detrimental for Ukraine. And I think that rather than just complaining and feeling a sense of desperation about what is going on in Ukraine right now, it pays off to have a strategy and to unite, particularly for the opposition parties. I'm not saying that they should become one party, but they should at least unite enough to support a certain policy. It's time to have a well-thought strategy related to opposition to the policies of the current government, related to acquiring support from all Western governments and all governments in the world, and organizations and foundations, and to do the best we can to build up autonomy and academic freedom in Ukraine, particularly in the universities, so that we can bring up new leaders, and so that the younger people and the younger generation can offer the Ukrainian nation some leadership that will be a bit more dedicated to the welfare of the nation and the people of Ukraine. So I put education as one of the key ingredients to this reform.
We have heard that we knew some students who went to Mohyla Academy, and they said especially one was majoring in law. She spoke Ukrainian, and she said that that students after a short time there start speaking Russian because to you kruto, it's cool. And I'm wondering what is your assessment of the importance of maintaining Ukrainian, or does I know there are many patriotic Russian speakers in Ukraine, but is it important, and I asked the two ladies to support speaking Ukrainian amongst students.
If you would allow me to, if you would allow me to answer, 2 days ago I was in Chicago Ukrainian village, and I was induced to hear Ukrainian far more often than in Kiev streets.
My tak samo.
And actually, there are times I feel that I'm in immigration in Kiev, because I do speak Ukrainian in any time, and even some hard times, because I don't know what is kruto, what is fashioned. For example, after the Orange Revolution, speaking Ukrainian was fancy, was fabulous, and that should be a how do you call it? The crucial moment when the tolerance to other languages will be the same hard as the respect to your own language, because it's not about not knowing Ukrainian. It's not about that there are too many Russian people. No. It's just because those who speak Ukrainian do not feel comfortable and certain in themselves and self-confident to speak it everywhere. So that is the thing to support. But you can't pay grants for speaking Ukrainian. You can't, pay students to do that. You just have to set an example. Just to make your Ukrainian better than Russian. So that is really a highly important question, but I don't know how that could be solved immediately.
I promised to ask only this one question. What this lady said. We have a friend in Ukraine who travels through, in her job, travels throughout Ukraine, and she was recently telling us that she was in Donetsk after visiting Lviv and Ivano-Frankivsk, and she was complaining to one of the officials in Donetsk that she knew, a friend of hers, that there are two Ukraines and how wonderful is Halachina in central Ukraine. Everybody, or almost everybody, speaks Ukrainian. There is democracy and everything is great. And then there is the eastern and southern Ukraine where things are terrible. And this person said, yes, this is true. But he said, but the path or the key to having Ukraine be what you would like it to be, a real national state, culturally and politically, is Donetsk and those provinces. And she was a little taken aback, and she said, why? And he said, because here we still have the old Soviet administrative system, and all it would take to change things overnight would be for each governor of that oblast to say, from tomorrow everybody has to speak Ukrainian. And everybody would speak Ukrainian and sing Ukrainian songs and listen to Ukrainian radio, etc., etc. I would like you to comment on that. Is that really how it is?
We talked about this very issue in Chicago at a community meeting. And the bottom line is that Ukraine is undergoing, it's a country in transition. It's a country that's going from a state of being a colony to where its dignity and identity were stripped for so many years, to turning and developing into a democratic country with an identity. And it's a very difficult, painful transitional period, and it's a very difficult job. The question of language in Ukraine is also very complicated, and we can't just force people and shoot people for not speaking Ukrainian. But it's not a big deal to speak Ukrainian in Ternopil or Ivano-Frankivsk or Lviv, but it is a big deal to speak Ukrainian in Kharkiv and Donetsk and in Kyiv. I traveled to Sevastopol and Simferopol. I don't speak Russian at all, other than da and хорошо. I never heard the Russian language until 1990. And I did not have any problems, and most of the people that I met with were of Russian ethnic background. I did not harass them for not speaking Ukrainian. I just merely said, sorry, I don't speak Russian. I'm sure you understand me, and help me out to understand you. And they were very helpful. Now that's my own personal experience. But with students on the streets, when they come out of a school, we face this all the time at Kiev Mohyla Academy. The classes are in Ukrainian, the faculty speaks Ukrainian, the students speak beautiful Ukrainian. But they come out on the street, and many of them do speak Ukrainian, but there are many that among themselves they feel freer speaking Russian. And it's a process of education and giving people a bit of pride. But how do you give them pride? They need to take an example from someone. They need leaders that are Ukrainians, that love their language, that are not going to steal, and that have pizzazz and make it fashionable.
Role models.
We can't pick on the young people. We have to look at the role models.
Bogdan and then Nadia Mikhailov.
I have a question for Lesya. On your observation about trying to centralize education, pyramid, are there any efforts to encourage the education of certain professions and discourage other ones? I read about, I'm involved with the grassroots effort of Sister Cities, which the ambassador very much approves of, and we are starting to talk with like Carpathian University and some others, and I noticed that when I looked at the tuition and I saw the different professions, the professions that were related to foreign affairs and law and medicine cost a lot more than other professions. And on the question about the language, I noticed in that university, the cheapest tuition was for Ukrainian and Russian, and then for French instruction literature it was higher, and then it was German, and then the most was for English. So that puzzled me. In our education system, it's not specified to the professions, and I don't know if that's something involved in market-driven, and even like the sciences were a lot cheaper. The sciences have labs and things like that, so I don't, that puzzles.
We've got a huge message about that we are lacking of some engineers, some scientists, and we are fed up with lawyers and economists. That was one message all over, and we really feel that because the number of lawyers we are preparing for state money is 40 times more than the market can take. But we've heard that for years, but nothing changed. Because we have the system when the state pays for some places in the university, so children got state-paid scholarship for learning, and the state decides, by the Ministry of Economy and the Ministry of Social Work, decides which places to pay for. And in the theory, it should have been that those ministries go to businesses and to labor market and ask what kind of specialists you would like to have, and get a decent reply. But what happens in practice, universities try their best to have as much lawyers, as much financial specialists, as much economists, as much foreign relations specialists as possible. Because these are the professions that have the most the most contest for them, and parents do believe that making a lawyer out of their daughter or son will make them more happier and more able to have some money. But it's not true. Actually, the situation is that to find a good lawyer in Kiev is easier. I can give you 10 telephones from start. But to find someone who would fix your apartment, it's really hard. And actually they get the same money. So what we are trying to do is to persuade to reform the state paid places system, so that the market, the business that pays taxes, gets the specialists they would like to have, and not paying too much money for nothing, and then just getting new stuff and have to pay for their education. About the languages and about the English, that is also the thing I'm trying to push through, is to make English language obligatory for every school. Nowadays we have 3/4 of schools that have English language, but 1/4 has either German, Spanish or French. And it is not possible for any university to ask for English language. For example, Kyiv-Mohyla has 2 languages in its statutes, so they have lectures both in English and in Ukrainian. But they could not, they have no right to demand English as a test to show from the student, because English is not all over the country obligatory. What Georgia made, the example of Georgia, they just made English all over, and in few years everyone in younger generation knows English. And it is really hard for me to explain why Ukrainian language teachers cost less, and it is really hard for me to give you an answer. But when you would like your child to have a good job, first thing they have to learn is English, because you'll never find a good job in Kiev, well-paid job, when you do not know English.
Nadia.
Well, first, welcome to our guest, Lasha Lebetin. Good to see you, Martha. I want to congratulate you for your victory on the education law, and especially since you were able to reach across, well, we say the aisle because we have 2 parties, but across the political spectrum. I think that's a very important maturing process in the democratic legislative process. I was also interested about the fact the rationale given to you for Mr. Tabachnik's remaining, and one being the Kremlin and being political control. Is there a recognition that education is so much more than about political control, or that it is at the heart of Ukraine's ability to integrate into Europe, to be competitive in the world, and I mean in just every level? And what were the arguments that you used to persuade your colleagues across the political spectrum to vote with you?
Thank you. First of all, it's not a victory. It's just 9 months instead of 1 week. So we managed to keep this process 9 months. So Tabachnik had to stop his process with his law, his suppressing law, and we have 9 months more for our education system, but it's not a victory. If he is still in place, he'll try more, and he finally could manage that. About arguments, there is a Ukrainian tradition to sing carols on Christmas, Have you ever seen singing carols in July? No? I made it. We call it singing carols when you come to communists, when you come to members of parliament from Party of Region, and blessing them not to do that. And what was an argument, it is hard for me to remember it, but the argument I came to Tihipko was, he's a vice prime minister. I said, you are a businessman, I was a businessman. There are always lack of money, always. We have to take money and spend it on our best students and our best universities. Otherwise, we'll never get best stuff, we'll never get best economy. And he understood me. because I found what is in common with us, but there are numerous examples like that. So singing carols. About Miroshnichenko, yes. He's a good guy. Really, he's in the wrong party, but he's a good guy. He's really motivated. He's really, the hardest argument for him why he should register his own war on higher education is to protect the dignity of his president. He's working for Yanukovych, but he's really loyal to him. He's really a member of his team. He's not the one to advise him to put Tymoshenko in jail and then make the Ukraine in isolation and Yanukovych as a regime. Yes? But he's the one to protect his dignity, and he did his best to do that. He's really a good guy. So, besides he's an opponent to me, but he really deserves my applause. So that's the case.
Hi, my name is Nazar Khalid. I used to work in Lviv University for 10 years, and I served as a deputy dean of the School of Economics. So I indeed have too many questions, but I will limit myself just to two. First is about political interference of political forces into education system. I remember when in 2001 and then in 2004 we received a letter from local SBU office with request to send a list of students who participated in students' protests, and then I think that everyone knows this situation with Ukrainian Catholic University. So my question is, how is it possible? What should we do, or what could we do to protect students from this political pressure? And my second question is about recognition of foreign diplomas. Many Ukrainians defended dissertations here in the West, and when they go to Ukraine, it is they are forced to go through very humiliating procedure of redefense of their dissertation in order to have a right to teach at the Ukrainian universities. So, although VAC was abolished,
It wasn't abolished. It was just included in the ministry.
So my question is, what
will happen?
What will happen? Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. First, how we can protect students. I can give you two good examples when students protected themselves. On October, the previous year, October, there were 20,000 meeting protests in 7 cities. Students organized with no political help or no money, and they used social media a lot to organize that. They were protesting against platni poslovi. So the cabinet of ministers tried to get money for visiting libraries in universities, for repassing exams and things like that. And after this meeting was gathered in one time, 20,000. So I can assure you that no political party without money could not organize such a protest. And that very day, President sent his excuses to students, and that very day, Azarov made this cancel his decision. But what can really protect students is the transparent conditions for them to become students and to keep their learning. Transparent conditions only. Because when the rector can like kick off any student he likes and make any marks possible in his student book, then the situation will go on, because they will also find a method to pressure. But the second question is about the recognition, diploma recognition. Just for those who do not know, the current situation is that if you would imagine the situation when a Nobel Award, for example in physics, would like to lecture in Kyiv-Mohyla Academy, he or her has to go through a 6 months procedure of nostrification to prove his level. I'm not joking. And after that, he will go through 2 or 3 months procedure to have a work permit. And if he still have forces to do that, then the university has to find some kind of grant, because that is not allowed to pay him state money for his lecturing. Yeah, I know for sure that there is a, and I did a lot to create such a group. There is a group of those who are interested in pushing the topic of diploma recognition, and we had few meetings, and we are now specifying the strategy. What should we do to cancel this system? Because right now, where the system exists, where the system of nostrification takes its place, because those who took their diplomas in Soviet time, or those who paid for them right now, would like to keep this system closed from the Western world, and for that case, then make the procedure for foreign professors as hard as possible, not for them not to compete with them.
But it's also hard for Ukrainians to come
Yes,
back.
but
with
they don't bother.
serious diplomas.
Yeah, they do not bother with that, because those who are professors in Ukraine mostly, they do not know English. They are not published in foreign scientific magazines and charts. They are not even participating in some dignant conferences. They just keep it with Russia, Kazakhstan, and Belarus, and like making review of science, nothing serious. But it really harms our economy a lot, and it really harms our science a lot. But they still focus on their own interests rather than the interests of Ukraine.
Can I ask a quick follow-up? So does that mean that this whole Bologna process has been abandoned?
Yes. Actually, like putting my hand on my heart, yes. Because Tabachnik's bill has 2 tiny norms. First, nostrification. I've told you what it does mean. And the second is that we are obliged to take money from foreign students for their educating in Ukraine. So, in terms of diplomacy, it means that the same conditions should be taken for Ukrainian students. So the Bolognian process, which presumes the freely exchange of students' knowledge and professors, failed.